something about picking up an instrument and that connection with my brain. Something happens to where I can usually find it on a guitar better. And I think in that sense, I was thinking about how you work with graphic designing, things like that. Like you are there, you get these, you're looking at it and it's kind of being created in real time. That's kind of how most of my music is.
If you would like to support the efforts and research we are doing here on this podcast, please go to podcasts.discoveringyourmind.com and become a monthly supporter. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and today we're talking with the one and only Isaac Mathews. Welcome, Isaac. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Shane.
You are welcome. It's good to have you. Why don't we just start out by you telling us a little bit about what you do for a living?
Yeah, I've been teaching elementary school for the last 15 years here in Southern Utah, and I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Coming up upon this school year, I will be the special education mild mod teacher of our school. So I'm excited.
Oh, really? Very cool.
Yeah.
My dad was a school teacher, and he taught kind of those same grades, 4th, 5th, 6th, most of the time. And my wife is currently a special ed teacher. So,
I didn't realize that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right. What about hobbies and interests? What do you like to do for fun?
Oh, I love music, and my main instrument's playing guitar and piano and things, but I love to write songs and love to hang out with family and friends, kind of more of a hangout thing, like movies or shows,
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple graph. If you would like to view the Apple graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia. So the first thing I would like you to do, we're just going to do some visualization exercises here and kind of find out how your mind works. So the first thing I'd like you to do is visualize a red apple in your mind.
Okay.
So I want you to take a look at those and tell me which one of those boxes best represents what you saw in your mind's eye.
It's kind of strange because I've thought a lot about this since I've met you, and it kind of goes from 3 and 4. Sometimes it's I don't know if it depends on the day or what. You probably know more about this than me, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, very cool. So would you say that's kind of where you're at in most things, kind of simple shapes? Sometimes it's in color and sometimes it's in black and white. Is that pretty standard for you?
Yeah, it helps me to close my eyes sometimes. I can imagine things better with my eyes closed.
Okay.
But even with my eyes open, I can kind of imagine it. It's like a 3.5, if you will.
Okay. So I told you a little bit about aphantasia a few months ago when we met. What is your understanding of what aphantasia is based on your little bit of research you've done. How would you define it?
First of all, I want to say you're an awesome advocate and educator of this. I knew nothing about it. When you asked me about it, I heard Aphantasia, and I'm like, I know Shane asked me a question about Aphantasia, but there's a Disney cartoon with Mickey Mouse, and
Right.
and so since I've been researching it, though, that there are people, you included, and since then I've asked friends and family, and I've identified 3 people in my family who 2 already knew they had aphantasia, had been researching it over the last few months, actually, last year. And so just learning from them and just learning that one person in my family, for example, he can't remember a lot of things in his life. He can't just like picture in his mind him on a swing, or, he just tells me, he's like, I can't remember a lot of things. He's a brilliant engineer. He can get in there and design something right then and there, hands-on experiences. So I'm really baffled by it sometimes, honestly, like I've learned from you and I've learned from research, but it's something I've taken for granted that I can just imagine things. And knowing that there's around 3% of the population that have aphantasia, that actually adds up to being a lot of people, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So imagining things for me as an educator, you mentioned your father's an educator, and it's really made me rethink my approach. And this new school year, I'm excited. I'm going to kind of assess some of my students and see how I can help them. I think it's good timing, because I think for the rest of my career, it's going to really help me become a better teacher. Yeah, helping children imagine things, showing visuals, and we'll get into some of that. And I do have a lot of questions as well, a few hopefully get in with you today.
Yeah, let's do it. So I love that you say that, because, I asked my dad about it after he'd retired. And I remember asking him, I said, do you see pictures in your head? And he said, of course, everyone does. Right. And after I told him about it, he's like, yeah, that would have affected the way I taught. I think it is important that everyone knows about it, but especially teachers. I think it's one of the fields that I think it's really important that teachers are aware of this. So basically right now, there's all sorts of different researchers doing research on this, but right now we've kind of identified 4 areas. We've got aphantasia, which is the inability to visualize. We have hyperphantasia on the other end of the spectrum, which is extremely vivid, very realistic kind of imagery. And then right next to aphantasia, going back down, we've got hypophantasia, which is very simple, basic visualization. Back to that Apple scale, it's around the number 2 area, where it's often just a very faint outline, and it usually doesn't last very long. And then right there in the middle, we kind of have just phantasia, people who can visualize kind of on a normal scale. And that kind of seems like that's where you are.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
For sure. Yeah. And I was wondering if it changes throughout your life. I feel like I could imagine things more vividly when I was younger.
Yeah. Every experience is valid. That's one of the things I've discovered is there are no rules. Everybody is beautifully unique. And so everybody has different experiences all over the map in all different ways. And so that's kind of what we're doing here today, is figure out where you land in a lot of these different things. And that can definitely be a thing. Pretty much anything can be a thing. I've discovered. That's why I like to interview all the different people, because you just get something different every time.
Right. And I've been listening to your previous podcast, and it fascinates me, that very thing. I mean, you talk to some of your family and friends, and I'm just fascinated by different abilities they have. I think the biggest important fact for me is that a big takeaway for me is it's not a clinical disorder. It just shows a variant in nature, really, among intelligent beings. It's showing there's diversity. And to me, that actually is really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So can you picture a chicken in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. Can you visualize a chicken in your mind?
Yes.
Can you imagine a chicken in your mind?
Yes.
And can you think of a chicken in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. So the reason I ask it that way is I'm curious about the words we use. Did any of those words, me using a different word, change the experience you're having in your mind, or were they all kind of the same?
They were similar, but when you said imagine, for some reason, the chicken was more animated.
Okay.
So I'm not sure why, but yeah, that is interesting. You would word it differently.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's one of the things I've kind of stumbled on as doing this is the words are crazy. Like all the words that mean different things to different people, and just the words I use will change the experience.
Yeah.
So I was just curious about that with you. With the chicken, would you describe it as looking at a picture or watching a movie or just a thought or something else? How would you describe it?
It feels like watching a movie in my mind.
Okay. Is it in color or is it black and white?
It's in color. The chicken, I imagine, is white. The legs are kind of orange, yellow, and it's, under its beak, it has the red, can't remember what to call that, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there's color.
All right. You said sometimes it is in black and white. Do you have any more explanation about how that happens and when that happens? Is it based on familiarity, maybe?
Perhaps it is. Yeah, because there have been different things since I've known you. I've been experimenting with different concepts and things you've discussed throughout other podcasts. And for some reason, some things are not as strong.
Okay. So when you see the chicken in color, are the colors vibrant or more muted?
They're a little muted. Again, going back to my childhood, I feel like it used to be more vivid. And I never thought about it till I started really researching aphantasia, and I swear it was more vivid. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Maybe the older I get, I'm becoming more aphantasia. Maybe, I don't know.
All right. Is it in 2D or 3D?
It's usually in 3D. I can visualize things like the chicken. Like I said, I can imagine, when you use that word imagine, I can think of it moving, and it's going down to the ground and picking yellow corn off the ground.
Okay. So can you rotate it in your mind and see it from all angles?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. Is the chicken isolated, or was there a background that appeared as well?
It was the ground, the corn, the chicken, and it kind of starts blurring beyond, like a little bit of ground beyond the chicken.
Okay. So it sounds like there was movement in the image as well?
Yeah, it was moving around and kind of clucking and then picking the corn. I don't know if I'm imagining it clucking or if I'm actually hearing, if it's actually affecting my auditory senses. But anyway.
So was that kind of an automatic thing that happened? You just, as part of the visual, you just heard it as well?
Mm-hmm. When you said think of a chicken, I could think of it. And I don't know if it does that to anybody else, but when you said imagine it, it was just more animated and it just became alive, more three-dimensional and like watching a movie.
So can you take control of the chicken and make it fly if you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Can you put a vest and a tie on the chicken?
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
How does he look?
He reminds me of those, the cartoons where they make it all anthropomorphic, the humanize, personifying these animals. And yeah, right. So all of a sudden it's like a Chicken Run movie. All of a sudden I imagine it in claymation and it's kind of taking on a different form or presentation. So it seems a little comical to me.
Right. Very cool. All right. And you said that the image was more clear with your eyes closed than open, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that you see the chicken in your mind, or is it projected out in front of you?
That's a good question. It seems to be a little bit of both. Like I feel it in my mind, but I can't imagine it. Like right now with my eyes open, I can imagine it on the ground picking at corn in front of me. But like if I have my eyes open and I look out and try to imagine it there, that's where it gets a little more faint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it solid or transparent?
It's solid when I close my eyes. And it's a little more transparent when I open my eyes. But I can imagine it like jumping on my bed, and I can imagine it pecking at my guitar, causing problems. Yeah.
That is so cool. All right. You already said that you could hear it in your mind. Mm-hmm. What about smell? Could you smell the chicken in your mind if you try?
There's actually a faint smell. And you mentioned some things may be more familiar. I remember my grandfather had chickens and goats in his backyard, and we'd visit him and help him with the animals sometimes. So maybe my familiarity does that. because I
Right.
can almost smell the hay. It's like a sweet smell.
What about the sensation of touch? Could you reach out and pet the chicken and feel that in your mind?
Not so much. Yeah, I can imagine reaching out, but I can't
You
touch
can't feel, you can't feel it.
Yeah, the only time something comes to my hands is when I imagine like being on a cliff. It makes my palms sweat. I can see myself on the edge of the cliff looking down, and
Really?
I don't like heights. So yeah, it's
Okay. That's interesting.
hmm
All right. What about if the chicken got the KFC treatment? Could you taste it in your mind?
It seems to be a little bit there. Yeah, I can taste it.
So now I'd like you to imagine a cup on a table,
hmm
and then imagine that someone walks in or walks up to the table and tips the cup over. Can you tell me what type of cup it was?
Yeah, it was white plastic.
Was there any liquid in the cup?
Not at first, but then when you
Okay.
said imagine them knocking it over, water came out.
What about the table? Do you know what kind of table it was and what color the table was?
Yeah, it was my dining room table.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what gender was the person that tipped the cup over?
a man.
Could you tell what he looked like? Do you know who it was?
He was faint. I think I was thinking of someone who reminded me of a friend of mine, kind of tall and slender, but he kind of walked in and hit it with the back of his hand.
Okay. So did you know the answer to all those questions before I asked him? Was it all there?
No, when you
Or did
started developing the question, there's the cup. I saw the cup as white plastic, and then you said, "Imagine someone walking in." I didn't anticipate you saying that, and all of a sudden, this guy walks in and he hits it, and it's on my table. That's where I saw it on my dining room table, and he knocked it over, and it spilled and fell off the table.
Okay. So those details kind of came in pieces.
Right.
Okay. That's kind of the purpose of that question, is to kind of see what details are just coming to you out of your imagination or whatever's happening. Because with me, those details don't really come. Since I'm not actually seeing anything, I kind of just have to make up those details on the fly,
No, that's fascinating. Like, I always wonder, when you're reading a book, do you experience that imagining them or the characters or things?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you more about reading later, but just to answer your question about me, it is words on a page. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I've always struggled enjoying reading because of that. I'll take the movie every time because I have a hard time getting into novels. I read more, nonfiction and those kind of things because that's information based. But anything that's requiring me to try and come up with, what a character looks like, that does not happen. I've never been disappointed in a movie because somebody didn't look right? Like, that's not a thing that happens to me.
Fascinating.
All right. Next thing I'd like you to do is visualize any room.
Okay.
Can you zoom outside the room to visualize the entire exterior of the building?
Yes.
Can you zoom out even further and view the entire neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. What about the entire city? Can you zoom out?
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. So if you can, just describe how that was, how much detail there was in those things, and kind of what your experience was.
Yeah, I imagined the office in my school at my work, and when you said, pan out, I imagined going in the hallway, and then I was in front of the school. I could see it, and then when you said, keep kind of more of a bird's eye view, I could see the streets, I could see the neighborhood, and I've always loved looking at Google Earth and things. So in my mind, I could see it in that kind of a format, to where I could see the city. I started even going further. I could see the southwest region of the United States, and then I could see the Earth.
Oh wow! You just kept zooming out.
Yeah, like I said, I think Google Earth kind of put that in my mind. Yeah.
Right. All right. The next one, I'd like you to visualize 3 blue dots.
Okay.
Now visualize 9 blue dots.
Okay.
Now visualize 100 blue dots.
All right.
Now visualize 1,000 blue dots.
Okay.
Okay. Were you able to do that?
Yes.
Very cool. Can you describe that a little bit, what was happening?
It was because you said dots, so they were circles, but my familiarity as a teacher helping children with numbers, we used the base 10 blocks, and so they're blue. Maybe that helped me, but they were still circles, but I could see them in, when you said see 100, they were in an array, 10 by 10. And then when you said imagine 1,000, they were the array of the 100 times 10. So they were holding to a form of a cube, but they were kind of like hovering around each other. They almost took on the spherical. It was easier for me to imagine spheres, 1,000, 100, than just two-dimensional circles. I don't know why.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. So seem pretty organized, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes when I ask people that question, it's like, oh, chaos, like there's dots everywhere. But it sounds like you kept it pretty organized. That's probably the teacher in you, right?
Yeah. And I've never heard that question before, so I've never thought about how I would think about it.
Okay. And does the effort play a role in how well you can visualize something?
Yes. Yeah. I like that word effort because I don't know what the effort is doing. Like I said, I can close my eyes, and if I just, for some reason, if I try to conjure it up, it can get better. So I'm not sure
Okay.
what my brain is doing there, but
Right.
it's doing something.
Doing something.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your energy or your mood? Does that affect your visualization in any way?
Yeah, mood is tricky. As a teacher, I teach children the only thing you can control in life is your behavior, your words, what you say, what you do, and that's it. You can't control the weather, you can't control other people, but when it comes to moods, that's an interesting thing. But yes, my imagination can help me in my mood. So sometimes, I could wake up feeling angry or sad, but if I imagine myself on a beautiful beach or a beautiful mountain view and I'm hiking into, beautiful sky and the sunshine ahead above, it feels like it starts making me feel a little more calm, and I can sometimes feel even a little bit more happy. So yeah, I use my imagination to get out of that situation.
Can you hold your mental images for as long as you want, or are they fleeting?
I think that's where effort comes in. It sometimes feels like they are fleeting if I don't try to keep them there.
In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
It starts off just black, and there's just like very faint colors. It's kind of a mix between space and water. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody listening, but it's not like being underwater, but it's not like being in space. Sorry, that's probably not very clear, but if I start imagining things, then it starts playing out. I can start creating things within my mind.
Okay. So do you have control over that? Can you keep it dark if you want to, and it only starts imagining if you choose to?
Yes. And an interesting thing came to me the other day, knowing I was going to talk to you today. And I remember being a child, and I can still do it now. And I don't know if any of your listeners would relate to this. And if they do, I would be interested, because this is something I've always wondered if other people can do it. I'd always imagine, if I close my eyes and just start imagining, trying to conjure up shapes, it becomes a sphere, and it's like checkered, and it can spin really fast. And when I was a child, that fascinated me. I always wondered what that was. It was almost like there was literally something there. And I can still conjure that up. It's a sphere. It's like, it could be, I don't know the size. I mean, it's relative. It could be, as big as the earth. It could be as small as a marble. I don't know, but it's there, and it's spinning, and it's checkered. And sometimes I can spin it really fast to where it's almost a blur.
So as a child, was that something that you purposefully decided to create, or was it more kind of organic? Did it have a mind of its own a little bit?
Yeah, it started out organically, must be around 6 years old. It was the first time we were traveling, and I was laying down in our van going through a bridge, and I closed my eyes, and that was there.
Wow.
And ever since then, I can conjure it up.
That is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like that before. So that's interesting.
So, I mean, if you have listeners who have had that same thing, I would love if they reach out to you and let you know, because I don't know what that is.
All right. Can you think of nothing if you want to?
Yes. When I close my eyes, it's like the default. it kind of starts on a clean slate, but then things start coming. I have tried to quiet my mind the older I get. And by that, I mean, I try to, just let things go, but I try to just be in the moment.
So with some effort, you can kind of stay in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no thoughts happening during those moments.
For a while. I can't hold it very long though, because my mind starts, things start happening. All of a sudden I can see my body under me, and then I'm either floating over something or I'm walking in a river. Cause all of a sudden my mind, it's like it wants to start. It's like it doesn't like to be blank. It almost feels like my mind has its own life, a life of its own.
Okay.
It's like all of a sudden and now I'm walking through a city, and it just starts playing out.
Okay. Do you tend to visualize things you've already seen before, or do you tend to create new and unique images in your mind?
Usually it's things I'm familiar with that I've experienced, but my mind has an ability to create, to like synthesize things together. I remember hearing once that you get the horn of a narwhal, you put it on a horse, and there's a unicorn. That kind of synthesis. My mind will put wings on, maybe it's sayings, obviously, pigs, flying pigs, but I can put wings on cats and make them fly around. I can put wings on mice and they fly above the trees. Yeah, and I can change things. If I imagine a fish and all of a sudden I change the fish colors, so I can start synthesizing things that aren't normally what they're not in reality.
Right.
And I enjoy creative writing, and I enjoy writing and stories and reading fantasy. So that may play into it as well. Okay.
So would you say that, say you're visualizing, again, going back to those words, let's say you visualize, the chicken, or then you move into imagine the chicken and you're starting to play with it. Are those kind of two separate spaces for you, or are they kind of intermingled?
They become intermingled. They build on each other. Like your analogy or your question about the cup, and then someone walks in, my mind will just keep adding things to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you visualize to the extent that it completely takes you out of your reality?
There was one time I imagined myself flying, and again, when I close my eyes, it becomes more vivid. And pretty soon I was like probably what they would call daydreaming. I wasn't sleeping, but I almost went into an altered state of consciousness. I was flying, and then that's where I was. Till pretty soon somebody snapped me out of it, and they're like, "Hey, Isaac, you said something to wake me out of it." But
oh wow,
it was pretty intense. Rare though. I've tried to imagine things more, but I'm always conscious of my physical body, typically.
Read the book that inspired this podcast, Aphantasia and Beyond, available on shanesbraindomain.com and Amazon. All right, so I want to move on to some of the other senses. We've got the mind's eye, right? That's what we're talking about with the visualization. So now I want to talk about the mind's ear. Just to start, would you say that you have a mind's ear that you can hear in your mind?
Yes. It's faint, but I can.
Okay. So kind of on that scale, would you say it's low, medium, or high?
It's typically low if I'm just kind of thinking, but if I use effort, I can enhance that. It can never become really high as if something were literally playing by my ear, but it gets almost close. For me, that would apply to music. I've had music in my dreams. I've woken up and I found my guitar and I found that melody I was thinking. And there are times I can just hear it. Like right now, I could probably imagine it. And music, there's some kind of a rhythm or music almost always in my mind.
I love that. I've heard other musicians say that they hear a melody or something in their dreams and then they wake up and try and recreate it or try and put it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's really fascinating to me. So when you're hearing music in your head, is it like listening to it in real life? Like, can you identify like the sound of the voice, the sound of the instruments?
It's close. Like I said, if I've put effort into it, it can get almost to that point, but it's almost like I can feel it also. I can hear it. I can hear the frequency and the notes in my mind. Like right now I can think of, for example, Guns N' Roses song Sweet Child of Mine, and I can imagine where I'd even put my fingers. So part of my visual comes in. I can see me playing it on the guitar, and I can hear it in my mind. Like right now I can hear the riff playing. If I sat quietly and didn't talk, it could become more and more vivid. I could hear it better.
Okay. So when you're writing music, is it a similar thing? Is it happening in your mind first?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've dreamed melodies that I've actually considered my own original melodies like 3 times. So that's not as common as some people may experience as musicians or songwriters. But something about picking up an instrument and that connection with my brain, something happens to where I can usually find it on a guitar better. And I think in that sense, I was thinking about how you work with graphic designing, things like that. Like you are there, you get these, you're looking at it and it's kind of being created in real time. That's kind of how most of my music is.
Okay.
Yeah. Something about that stimuli, the stimulation of my ears and hearing the guitar and feeling it, all my senses coming together. And I can pick up a guitar and write a new song, or or at least synthesize different songs better if I'm right there playing the instrument.
What about an inner monologue? Would you say you have an inner monologue?
Quite a bit. Yes.
Okay. Again, with the different words, what about if I ask you about an inner voice or an inner dialogue or self-talk? Do those mean different things to you, or are they all kind of the same?
Kind of like when you asked about imagine and think, they are a little different to me. When I think of an inner voice, it feels like it comes from a different part of, like it feels like it comes from my heart. I don't know why. I don't know. You start talking about this stuff and you're thinking, I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, but yeah, it comes from different parts of my body.
Okay. So what does inner monologue mean to you?
It feels like inner monologue is more of my own voice, more of my own thinking. I feel like my inner monologue is me thinking about, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And it'll start with words, and then I'll start imagining the things it's describing.
Okay. Does it feel like you're actually hearing it? And is it in your voice?
Yeah, it's and it must be just memory of my voice maybe, but this is unique too. A lot of people have not listened to their voices very much, but because I've written music and spoken on things and played back and listened to it, I'm familiar with my voice as people hear it, which a lot of people are really shocked by the sound of their voice. Usually They're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. It's embarrassing. But yeah, it can be in my voice.
Okay. So can you identify the pitch and the tone of your voice in your mind?
Yeah, it's it's the bass voice. And I can even identify the notes. It's between E. If you're on the guitar, it can go down to a bass guitar. It can go down to the low E. My voice can go pretty low, and it can in my mind as well.
Do you play out conversations in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear both your voice and the other person's voice?
Yes. If there's somebody the more I know somebody, the more familiar I am with them, the more I can conjure up their voice, and I can even make them say things I want them to say.
Okay. Very cool. So we talked about before how you can kind of pull up that black screen, for lack of a better word, and kind of hold it there for a little bit. Is it similar with your inner monologue? Can you shut it off, or is it always going?
It seems like it changes. Yeah. It seems like it's always going in some way. It's wanting to describe things. It's wanting to reason about things. It's wanting to, I wonder why that does that, or I wonder, but it's kind of always there in a way.
Okay. If I say the word police siren, do you automatically hear that in your mind, or is that optional?
I can see the rotating lights and I can hear the high frequency. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any way you can not do that? Like if I say police siren, can you not hear it and see it?
When you say that, I just imagine it. So I don't think there's a way for me not to imagine it. When I'm prompted by somebody to say, imagine an alien, I can imagine it. but I wasn't thinking it until they said that.
All right, let's talk about the mind's nose, right? You said that there was a little bit of a smell of the hay when you were thinking about the chicken.
Yeah.
So again, rate that on low, medium, or high.
It's pretty low.
Okay.
Yeah, compared to my other sensory imaginations, it seems lower.
When I say the words movie theater popcorn, can you smell that in your mind?
Faintly.
Okay. What about this one? If you're watching TV, so you're watching some cooking show, can you smell the food that they're cooking at all?
It's really faint. Like right now, if I'm watching Gordon Ramsay, I can imagine him on the show with, these other chefs, and I can imagine them cooking a steak, for example. I can hear the sizzle a little bit. I can imagine it, but the smell is faintly there. It's not it seems to be the weakest imaginary sense for me.
And is taste kind of right there?
Yeah, that's low as well. Smell. So maybe that's because they're connected. I hear that, the sense of taste and smell are somewhat connected. So maybe they're not as dominant for me as other people.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that I wonder about, because I've heard some people say that they're almost the same thing. But for me, they are two completely separate senses. They're not connected in any way for me. All right, let's talk about what I'm calling the mind's fingertip, and that's the sensation of touch, even though it extends way beyond the fingertip. But I just want to read a quick definition of it. The mind's fingertip refers to the ability to touch or feel something in one's mind. It suggests a mental sensation of touch, such as an embrace, a texture, a temperature, or a breeze that is not physically present. So if I say the word sandpaper, can you feel that?
I can't on my hands as if touching it, but I can. Maybe the memory is strong in my mind to where I know what it's going to feel like. And when you start talking like this, you'll wonder if it makes sense at all. But yeah, I know it's going to be like a little rough on my fingertips if I reached out and touched the sandpaper.
Okay. You talked earlier about sometimes imagining yourself on a beach. If you do that, can you feel the breeze in your face?
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing, isn't it? I know I can imagine a breeze, but I don't know what that sense is. It's not really, I can't literally feel it on my face, but yeah, I can imagine it through my hair and I can it feels like a feeling. But yeah, that's a little odd in that sense.
Okay. Can you feel the water on your feet?
Yeah, I can imagine it. Yeah, being a little cold. Typically, it's usually a cold water beach. Yeah.
This is something I really struggle to understand, and I don't know the best way to ask it, but a lot of times when I ask these questions, I'll ask people, well, can you see it? Yeah, I can see it. And then when I start asking them about some of the other senses, they're more reluctant, and they start using the word, well, I can imagine it. I can't actually feel it, but I can imagine it. I kind of don't understand the difference because I don't have any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So do you have any insight on that? Like when I was asking you visually, I don't think you made that distinction. But once I got into the other senses, you started making it a lot. Like, well, I can imagine it, or I know what it's like would be like. Can you help me out there? Because that's something I'm confused by.
Yeah, no, and that's an interesting question in itself. And I think a lot of these things we typically don't talk about or think about.
Right.
For me, it'd be something about a visual sense is stronger, and perhaps it's just stronger for most people that have aphantasia. And I don't know, speaking for myself, it kind of, one analogy I can think of is, or an example is, when I dream, I can imagine it dark, and there's kind of an eerie feeling. And I look back and there's kind of like either a phantom or it's a monster or something is going to come at me, and I can't get my legs to move. Right. So there's something about the sense of feeling. And sometimes when I imagine it, it's almost like that. So I don't know. Yeah, that's not helpful at all, but something.
No, that is. I love that example because that's something I hadn't thought about before. That is an interesting analogy. I like it.
For some reason, when I think about when you say, can you imagine feeling the wind? I don't know why I feel something in my stomach. like I said, certain senses, certain things might be in different parts of my body. For some reason, my chest, my stomach, my heart area, and I don't know why that is. I can feel it more there, sense it.
Okay. Just as you're talking again, I'm just kind of reveling in, how beautifully unique everyone is. It's my favorite thing about doing this. And one of the questions that just came to my mind is, before you knew about aphantasia or this subject, did you pretty much just assume that everyone else was having a very similar experience internally than you are?
Yes. And I feel bad as a teacher. I can't speak for other people, but all I can do is move forward from here. And I'm glad I do know about it because, I'm going to have more visuals, which I always did. I'd try to show videos, right? Try to show a picture. But now that I'm aware of aphantasia, and I will assess certain students, using the Apple chart, the things that neurologists and memory researchers have developed through this since, what was it, 2003, when the first person started developing that theory about aphantasia.
That's when Adam Zeman first started studying.
Right. Yeah. So I assumed everyone was like me, which is, maybe that's a form of arrogance or ego. But yeah.
Well, what it is universal. Everybody does that. Yeah.
And
I did.
You assumed nobody, I guess.
Yeah. I had no idea people could actually see pictures.
Yeah. And it's also got me thinking about, like, if I was unaware of this, what else is there? Because there was a video that linked in from aphantasia, and it got into humans experience just our senses alone. We can't see with it. There's the chart with the wavelengths, and it shows, X-ray, microwave, there's gamma rays, there's different spectrum and there's so many things that humans cannot hear, see, or feel beyond our senses.
Right.
And so in that sense, we all have kind of an inability for certain things. And so, it intrigues me. It really makes me wonder why we always assume things are as they are for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be human nature.
Yeah. I mean, some people say it's obvious. I've talked about that with some people, my friends. They say, well, obviously, because that's all I know. But
right.
I mean, I can imagine other worlds. You watch science fiction movies and we don't live in that world. So why is it we weren't imagining someone who couldn't imagine, But yeah, right. So it's been great knowing you and learning from you and starting to think about this. And I'm coming to a point now where I try not to assume anything. Like I'm almost, I love philosophy and I love Rene Descartes, where he just kept pulling back. How do I know anything? And this is more into the philosophy of how do you know anything? But I'm doing the same thing now with sensory experiences, and I'm not going to assume anything about you, and so when I talk to people, it's more of a conversation. Like, do you sense that? Or have you ever thought this? Or,
right.
Instead of assuming they did. So yeah, in that sense, it's really affected my way of thinking in other areas.
I'm the same way. Like I've embraced that. I don't know anything, and I especially don't know anything about anyone else's experience. There's no way I can possibly judge it.
Right.
There's just no way. And so it's made me less judgmental. It's made me more, for lack of a better word, just unconditional love. All right. A little bit more about reading. So when you read a novel, is it like a movie in your mind or something else?
Pretty close to a movie.
How well can you visualize the characters and the surroundings?
I can create images of characters that I've never seen before. And again, maybe it's back to what I was saying, where I'm synthesizing things. It's like, oh, this character in my mind, he doesn't look exactly like Rob Lowe, the actor, but he kind of has, and sometimes they can shift their images. Like now the hero in this story in my mind looks a little more like Patrick Swayze, stuff like that can happen. It's almost like a dream, I guess, because my dreams are crazy sometimes, but.
Okay. So is it pretty detailed? Like, can you see like individual strands of hair, different skin tones or blemishes on the skin? Like, is it super detailed like that?
Yes. And it depends on how good the writer can describe using adjectives or adverbs, or, you know what I mean? It's like, some authors are so great in writing. I'm just the ones that come off the top of my head, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling. And when they start describing something, that's when I can almost feel it. I can almost hear it. I can almost smell it, because they're explaining through so many of the senses, which in creative writing, you try to encourage the writers. In my experience with my students, I try to encourage them, describe what you're seeing, describe what you can hear. So yeah, depending on the writer, it's kind of like when you said, imagine this. Can you not imagine that? When I'm reading it, they're just taking me right into their imagination.
Okay. So when we started out and we did the Apple graph, you said you were kind of at a 4 or a 3. Mm-hmm. But what you're describing with your book reading seems much more beyond that. Am I right with that?
It seems to be a good 4 if the writer is describing the rain was pounding down on the man as he was climbing the mountain and the lightning in the back. It's like if their words are real. So I guess words can help me imagine better. And so if I'm just imagining something in my own mind without those prompts, maybe that's what it is.
Right. The more descriptive they get, the more detail gets added.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the characters' voices, if the different characters are speaking, are you assigning different voices? Can you hear the voices? Anything there?
Yeah, I can imagine them. And I think that may come into things that I'm familiar with. Because for example, if I imagine the Lord of the Rings story, I can imagine my own kind of characters, but certain characters will sound and start to look like those in the movie. But I can change out of that. I can make my own version of them, but sometimes it'll fall into that as default,
Okay. Is there any narration? Like, do you hear yourself or someone else reading the words?
Yeah. And usually when there's a narrator who's narrating the story, they're describing things. I don't know why it's usually a soft voice of a woman. And so I'm not sure why, but when she says, and so-and-so said, and the character speaks, I can hear a man, or I can imagine a child, or I can hear the dog bark. I can imagine that a little bit,
Okay.
But the narrator is typically by default, not my voice. It's typically it's a woman's voice that's very soft and very clear.
What about audiobooks? Do you like audiobooks at all?
I do. I like audiobooks. And when they describe it, I can still imagine it in my own way. Unless, like I said, unless the author is really descriptive and they hold me into what they're imagining. So it depends on how specific or detailed an author is.
Okay. So would you say that the experience in your mind, an audiobook versus reading the words on the page, are they very similar experiences or are they different?
That's a good question. I can actually imagine better if I'm reading.
All right. Let's talk about sleep and dreams. What does the phrase counting sheep mean to you? Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, I have. And it actually does help me it's kind of like, for me, it means taking control of my mind instead of worrying about things, making it more positive, imagining, it could be sheep jumping, literally, or it could be imagining myself walking through a beautiful place and to where it makes me feel more calm. So I guess it becomes more of a meditative experience.
All right, let's talk about your dreams. So is your dream experience different from how you visualize when you're awake? Are they comparable?
It seems to be a little more realistic. Like my senses of feeling and hearing seem to be a little better in my dreams. If I just imagine something, it doesn't seem to be as potent or strong or vivid.
Are your dreams in first person or third person?
Typically first person. Yeah, I'm looking out and it's I can see my arms under me. If I look down, I can see my body. So it's typically from my first person perspective.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about memory. If you want to recall a memory, can you see it in your mind?
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Since I've been researching this, knowing you, I've kind of gotten a little bit into memory research as well. I used to think I could remember really well. And then when you test it out, though, I think there's findings that memory is not very good. Before I knew you, I would probably say, yeah, I can remember really well. But when I started doing some of their tests and learning about how you can actually plant memories in people's minds, I think I'm imagining things different than they really happened.
Okay.
Which is strange to me. It's kind of unsettling, really. But
right.
yeah.
Right. So if I were to ask you to go back and remember your wedding day or your high school graduation, something that was meaningful to you like that, does it feel like you're there again and experiencing it all over again?
Yeah, it does. And that's why I say I thought I remembered really well. And the reason I say I thought I did and I'm losing confidence in that is because some of their tests involve asking people who were there. And so I have friends or family and I'm like, hey, remember that? And they remember it differently. So I don't know which of us is remembering the right way. So
Right.
I'm losing confidence in my memory.
What about your memories as far as first person or third person?
That can go different ways. For some reason, for example, I remember when I was a child, I'm going to my memory right now. I jumped off of a dresser and on the floor was something really pokey or whatever, and it hurt my foot. I can watch myself doing it, but then I can look from my first person perspective. For some reason, I don't know why that is. I can imagine me as a child. And maybe that's because I've seen videos and pictures of me, maybe that plays into feeding my memory ability to do that. So I can experience it. And then it's almost like a movie where the director can take different perspectives, if I want to, I can imagine myself right now sitting in a chair talking to you in third person, or whatever. But
right. That's so cool. So wild. All right. How would you describe how your mind stores information?
It's funny when I watched, I was going to say file cabinets, drawers and things, because I do, but it made me laugh when I watched Bruce Almighty and they show this memories in the file cabinet. I'm like, wow, that's kind of how I imagined it. It made me laugh because somebody was, obviously a lot of people think that way because they, directed that way. But yeah, it's very compartmentalized, which again, it gets into how men and women can think differently. But most women I've heard do not compartmentalize as much as most men.
Okay. So it feels like there are different rooms or different compartments in your mind.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, it's interesting you said the word room because that kind of goes back to my dreams. I had a dream one time where I was in this home that never ended. Hallways that led to other rooms and and I think it reflects my mind. It's like there's no end to it. Just a door will always open up to another room.
Wow, that is cool. So I've asked you a lot about, these different phrases we have in our society and what they mean to you. Another one we have is search your mind. What does that one mean to you? Like if you've got rooms and compartments, or a filing cabinet, does it feel like you're like searching through those things?
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine it. And each room has a, different flooring, has different lighting. Each room has different, finish work in it, different furniture. There's different purposes. There's bathrooms. I can imagine dance halls. I can imagine a banquet hall. I can imagine a little cubby hole for reading, or whatever,
So are your memories stored in these different rooms?
They can be. If you told me to imagine opening a drawer and opening memories of my childhood, I can imagine that.
Could you search by keyword? Like, I want to go to 1991. Is it kind of like that?
Oh yeah. For when you said 1991, I was in my memory. It's like I can open up this door and my friend and I and some of my family went to Pearl Jam concert in Las Vegas and it was 1991. So when you said that, you opened up that specific memory.
Oh, wow. That is so cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting you said that because time and geography connect with me, like where I was when I was there.
I love that description. Out of all the questions I ask, the mind storage and the rooms and compartments thing is my favorite one because it just always just boggles my mind what you people are experiencing. It's so awesome.
Well, it's interesting because, like I said earlier, there's around 3% of people with aphantasia, but that translates to being millions and millions of people. That, like I said, I love the diversity of humanity. I love that. That's beautiful.
Couldn't agree more. What about this one? Can you recite the alphabet backwards?
See why? Not very well. Yeah, because if I try to imagine the letters, that seems like such a long thing. If I imagine, the first 5 letters or imagine the last, yeah, and for some reason I can't feed it back like Z, Y, X, and then I start having to think forward, and then I try to walk backwards. So it's not very easy for me to do that.
Okay. Cool.
But I wanted to tell you as well that goes along with that. My father, he's passed away, but I remember him telling me that he had a schoolmate in college who had a photographic memory. I guess his memory was flawless. He could look through a book and then he knew it. He could tell you what was on page 5, on page 27. So, I mean, that's obviously hyperphantasia of some kind, right? I mean,
Yes.
he just looked through a book, and in college, he didn't study much. He didn't have to spend much time doing it. Yeah.
Right. That was one of the first things I discovered with my wife when we learned about this and started talking about it. We were both in school at the time, and she told me, "Oh yeah, I can just pull my notes up and read them." I'm like, "What? That's cheating, isn't that cheating?" It feels like cheating to me.
No, it is interesting. It is. That's and I've studied some things in the past about enhancing technology. They can put a chip in a brain or something. They're experimenting with things, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays into aphantasia and hyperphantasia and whatever. Because are they able to put something into a brain of someone with aphantasia and start projecting those images? I don't know.
Okay. So, in retrospect, do you think that the way you visualized affected how you performed in school? Like, did you do well in school as a kid?
Yeah, I did. I did well. Because I can remember things, I imagine things, or if I was reading something in the text, I was imagining it. And because I imagined it, I was able to answer a question. And even now, I'm working on my master's degree and studying things, and I'm imagining these children in this classroom setting, and I'm imagining the teacher. And then when I take the quiz, I just replay that scenario. I can pass a quiz. I can just remember that scenario in my mind.
Okay, last question. If you woke up tomorrow and had aphantasia, how do you think it would affect your life?
I think it would affect me as a teacher, knowing exactly how I should and could teach better. Because right now I try to imagine not being able to imagine. Right. It gets tricky. So I think I honestly think I would be a better teacher in that way.
Wow. That is a cool response. That's pretty much it, Isaac. Is there anything else you would like to talk about or ask me before we sign off?
Just a note on things I'm questioning still as I research more aphantasia. A few questions I had was, and I don't know how much you know about this, but I want to research more of altered states of consciousness. Someone with aphantasia, were they able to experience a hallucination on substances that cause that altered state of consciousness? For example, if someone with aphantasia were to take a certain substance or drug, where someone with phantasia or hyperphantasia, it seems like they're just on this huge journey. If they went on psilocybin or mushrooms, would they be imagining something?
Yeah, let's talk about it. I do know a little bit about this.
Yeah. So
probably the blanket statement to cover any question like this is everybody's different.
Again. Right.
And I hate to keep going back to it, but it's true. I have talked to several people with aphantasia, including myself, who have done psilocybin, magic mushrooms, and the experiences vary. Some people have had very vivid visual. It's turned that on for them.
Wow.
Other people, it's more subtle. For me, when I closed my eyes, I saw endless, beautiful, flowing colors and patterns.
Wow.
And it was an awesome experience because I've never experienced anything like that. It wasn't like I could pull up in my mind's eye an apple or anything, it wasn't anything like that, but I was having a visual experience that I've never had before. And it
Amazing.
Was beautiful. Different people have different reactions, but yeah, it does affect people with aphantasia as well.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No, that's been great. I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right. I appreciate it. I thought you had some really great insights and answers, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much again. This has been fun. And I thank you for doing what you do. Like, you know, I think more people need to, now that I'm a teacher, I'm going to try to teach other teachers about it. And it's just amazing, man. It's like opened up a whole other world for me. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.